Thanks for staying with us. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up within the half hour. Suspect in the North London stabbing named as Issa Sulaiman from Southeast London. US President Donald Trump warns there may never be a deal with Iran. Members of the European Parliament criticized the EU's double standard policy towards Israel. Let's begin the world today. And we begin with an update on the North London stabbing attack as the suspect has now been named. He is 45-year-old Issa Sulaiman from Southeast London. Reports say he was born in Somalia but came to the UK legally as a child in the early years and is now a British citizen. Earlier, Metropolitan Police Commissioner Mark Rowley said the suspect has a history of serious violence and mental health issues and was referred to the government's Counter-Terrorism Prevent program in 2020. The referral was closed the same year. After his arrest, Sulaiman was treated briefly in a hospital and now remains in custody with the police under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. Meanwhile, the Jewish community is voicing concerns about their safety after the police described the stabbing that injured 2 Jewish people as a terrorist incident. They're calling for government action over attacks on the Jewish community and its institutions.
I say kick out the ambassadors. We need firm, strong action from Keir Starmer. We need to kick the ambassadors out of the Iranian embassy. We need to prescribe the Iranian regime immediately. We need to prescribe organizations that protest on the street calling for an intifada, global intifada. I am very emotional today. I don't know how many other people here standing with us, standing with the Jewish community. You know, this is a very tight neighborhood, a very quiet neighborhood. People go about their business daily, and I just stand here with them, and I'm sure that others feel the same way.
Well, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the incident is deeply concerning. He's also described it as an appalling attack, adding the government is working to ramp up security and ensure swift justice for such offences.
I've just held a COBRA meeting, bringing together all the relevant partners, including the Home Secretary, the London Mayor, the Metropolitan Commissioner, to coordinate our response and to look at enhanced security. I've also spoken to CST. There is enhanced funding already in place. We need to increase that to give the level of protection that is needed. But of course, it's our responsibility to coordinate the immediate response here to this appalling attack, to ensure security is in place, to take other measures. I'm holding a meeting tomorrow with the criminal justice agencies to make sure that we can have effective and swift justice in these cases. But we do have to recognise the levels of anxiety and concern there are, that I know about, in terms of the Jewish community feeling very much exposed and vulnerable, feeling they've got to hide their identity, sometimes in the health service, sometimes at school, on the streets where they live. And it's our job to make sure that they feel safe and secure. It's our job to make sure that we absolutely deal with the roots of anti-Semitism and extremism. That is what we will do.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Away from the stabbing in London following negotiation deadlocks in the Middle East conflict, oil prices have jumped to their highest levels since 2022. As follows, reports that the US military is set to brief President Donald Trump on new plans for potential action in the Iran conflict. Reports say the US Central Command has prepared a plan for a wave of short and powerful strikes on Iran to try to break the deadlock in negotiations with Tehran. Brent crude rose by almost 7% to more than $126 a barrel at one point before falling back. Energy prices have been rising this week as peace talks reappear or appear to have stalled, with the key Strait of Hormuz waterway still effectively closed. The sharp swing in oil prices is partly being blamed on a deadline for futures contracts, which are agreements to buy or sell an asset at a set date. About 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas usually pass through the strait, and the conflict has sent global energy prices soaring. Meanwhile, the U.S. President Donald Trump has warned there may never be a deal with Iran. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, he stressed that any agreements would require Iran abandoning its pursuit for nuclear weapons. He adds that Iran has made progress in talks but must give up, claiming the U.S. has already defeated it militarily.
I mean, militarily, we've wiped them out. They have no military left. It's all, the Navy's at the bottom of the sea. The Air Force is never going to fly again. We've got an amazing military. Now they have to cry uncle. That's all they have to do. Just say, we give up. We give up. But their economy is really in trouble. So it's a dead economy. We have talks. We're having talks with them now, and we're not flying anymore with 18-hour flights every time we want to see a piece of paper. We're doing it telephonically, and it's very nice. I make a call, or I have my people make a call, and you know the answer. I always like face-to-face. I consider it better. But when you have to fly 18 hours every time you want to have a meeting, and you know what the meeting's all about, and you know they're going to give you a piece of paper that you don't like before you even leave. It's ridiculous. They've come a long way. The question is whether or not they're going to go far enough. So at this moment, there will never be a deal unless they agree that there will be no nuclear weapons.
U.S. President Donald Trump. In the meantime, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization has warned against a spiral of expanded testing, saying it may never be able to be stopped. The organization's executive secretary, Robert Floyd, says a CTBTO is responsible for implementing a treaty that bans nuclear explosions of any size, from the smallest to the largest. He adds that this measure will serve as an essential tool in stopping the spread of nuclear weapons between states and limiting their further development.
The NPT Review Conference, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference here this week, but for the next 4 weeks, is an important review of the cornerstone of the nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament architecture. The organization that I head is about implementing a treaty that sits within that architecture, and that is a treaty, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, banning nuclear explosions of any size, from the tiniest to the largest. That is an essential part of being able to stop the spread of nuclear weapons around the world from state to state, and also to limit the further development of nuclear weapons. The treaty has not yet entered into force and therefore is not legally binding. But our international monitoring system will detect a nuclear weapon explosion of 500 tons of TNT or above anywhere across the face of the planet, or underwater, underground. It will be detected. And that is a powerful benefit to all humanity, because any state that thinks of developing a nuclear weapon would need to test one. And if they did, it will be known to all. In the current situation, the CTBT and the ban on testing is a little bit more in front of mind than what it has been for a long time, particularly when states are threatening to return to testing. And the likelihood that if one state tests, others would, and even more, would potentially then go into a spiral of expanded testing. That is a spiral that we do not want to see start, because it may never be able to be stopped.
The United Nations has condemned Iran's crackdown on dissent, saying authorities are stripping citizens of their rights despite the impact of recent Israeli and U.S. attacks. The UN human rights spokesperson, Rivani Shamdasani, said since the February 28th since February 28th, at least 21 people have been executed and more than 4,000 arrested on national security-related charges. She adds that dozens of prisoners have been transferred to unknown locations with no information on their fate. Among them is human rights lawyer Nasrin Sotoudeh. The UN Human Rights Office has called on authorities to halt all further executions, establish a moratorium on the use of capital punishment, fully ensure due process and fair trial guarantees, and release immediately those arbitrarily detained.
UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk deplores the crackdown by Iranian authorities on dissent. We are appalled that on top of the already severe impacts of the devastating Israeli-US attacks on Iran, the rights of the Iranian people continue to be stripped from them by the authorities in harsh and brutal ways. Since the 28th of February, at least 21 people have been executed and more than 4,000 arrested on national security-related charges. Dozens of prisoners have been transferred to unknown locations with no information on their fate, among them human rights lawyer Nasrin Sotoudeh. Conditions of detention are dire, with severe overcrowding, acute shortages of food, water, and medicine. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Narges Mohammadi remains imprisoned under high-risk conditions, with her health reportedly worsening. The mass confiscation of assets is also being used as a tool of transnational repression and punishment, with authorities seizing assets of some 675 citizens, labeling them traitors to the homeland. A newly launched financial tracking system, SAHU, now enables courts and prosecutors nationwide to identify and seize assets electronically. Access to the internet in Iran has now been almost entirely shut down for 61 days, making it one of the most severe shutdowns ever recorded globally. This is denying people across the country access to vital information, silencing independent voices, and inflicting enormous social and economic harm. It is already exacerbating a precarious humanitarian and economic situation. We call on the authorities to halt all further executions, establish a moratorium on the use of capital punishment, fully ensure due process and fair trial guarantees, and to release immediately those arbitrarily detained.
We're off on a short break on the World Today. Still ahead. What do you think with these people? U.S. War Secretary Pete Hegseth has revealed he's putting the defense industry on a wartime footing. He made this known while addressing the U.S. House Armed Services Committee in Washington, D.C., saying that under President Donald Trump, the military is reversing systemic decay and restoring the defensive industrial base.
We are reversing this systemic decay and putting our defense industrial base back on a wartime footing. If you ask anyone at our Pentagon, urgency informs everything we do. We're rebuilding a military that the American people can be proud of, one that instills nothing less than unrelenting fear in our adversaries and the utmost confidence in our allies. We fight to win in every scenario.
Meanwhile, a tense exchange erupted in Congress as U.S. Representative Ro Khanna, pressed Hegseth on the true cost of the war with Iran, including a deadly strike on a school in Minab, accusing him of incompetence.
You've testified that it was $25 billion in costs in terms of the munitions we used and what we paid for it. But when you add to that the damage that was done to our bases, and today's dollars for buying replacement munitions and replacement aircrafts, what has the total cost been over the last 60 days?
That number right now reflects the total cost that we're seeing.
Including buying in today's dollars the new weapons and replacements, and including the damage there? That's your testimony?
If there's adjustments to that, I would defer to the comptroller on that.
And how much are you seeing in terms of, are you asking in terms of supplemental funding just for the Iran mission from this committee?
If and when a supplemental is submitted,
how much?
The majority of it would not just be for,
But what would be the ballpark for Iran?
Munitions related to the entirety
Just
of
a
what
number,
we want to
sir.
get done.
A number, what would you submit? What are
It
you
would be
requesting?
within on Iran, it would be less than 25 billion, but there's a lot more we would ask for beyond just Iran.
You're saying it's
considering-
25 billion. Okay, I would just, if you
Okay.
come back, you want to revise those numbers, because all the experts are disagreeing with you when it comes to today's dollars and damage, but you can revise it. How much did it cost American taxpayers in terms of the strike to the Iranian school where kids were killed? Do you have that number? In terms of the missiles we used?
As I've said, that unfortunate situation remains under investigation.
You don't know how much it costs the
investigation, but I
taxpayer?
wouldn't tie a cost to that, to anything.
To Europe now, members of the parliament have criticized the European Union's double standard policy towards Israel. Lawmakers debated the situation in southern Lebanon in Strasbourg, France, arguing that Europe forcefully condemns Russia's offensive in Ukraine, but fails to respond similarly to Israel's actions in Gaza and Lebanon. Lawmakers also criticized European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen for not addressing the conflicts led by President Netanyahu, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, beg your pardon, and backed by U.S. President Donald Trump, accusing Israel of acting with impunity and describing its actions as a continuing regional Nakba, while calling for the suspension of the EU-Israel Association Agreement.
During the last 4 years, Europe has fiercely denounced the illegal Russian invasion of Ukraine. But this is not happening, neither with Lebanon, not with Gaza. We want sanctions.
And we will be leaving, UNIFIL will be leaving at the end of this year. But as it stands, we will be leaving a region in turmoil. Is it too much for us in this House to ask for the implementation of a ceasefire, support peace efforts and humanitarian access? Is it too much for us to ask Israel to comply with international law? Israel acts with impunity because we have granted it immunity. It simply can disobey any international law, humanitarian standards, and at will bomb and kill people, while we know at the end of the day a diplomatic effort is required to bring stability to the region and security to Israel.
Not content with their genocide in Gaza, Israel and war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu has extended their crimes towards the people of Lebanon. Reports of the Israeli Defense Minister has ordered the destruction of homes inside of Lebanon tells us clearly their aim is occupation and annexation. And whilst all of this is going on, the EU still refuses to suspend the EU-Israel Association Agreement. Some of our governments are even still selling weapons to Israel to help facilitate their crimes, occupation and annexation. Shame on them. If we are serious about a lasting ceasefire, we need the occupying IDF to withdraw from Lebanese territory.
In India, at least 10 people have been reportedly killed in the last 24 hours in Bengaluru as record-breaking rainfall and hailstorms strike the country's Silicon Valley after days of scorching heat. Now, according to local media, torrential rain and hail reportedly shattered a 25-year record for the city's highest single-day April rainfall, delivering nearly twice the month's average precipitation within just a few hours. Meanwhile, a compound wall at Bowring Hospital collapsed during the heavy thunderstorms on Wednesday evening, killing 7 people and injuring 9 people. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed his condolences to the victims and their families, pledging an ex gratia of 200,000 rupees for the families of the deceased and 50,000 rupees for the injured. During the signing event inside the Miraflores Palace in Caracas, Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, said an agreement has been signed with British Petroleum to return to Venezuela and will support energy cooperation. She says the agreement covers the Deltana platform, an offshore oil and natural gas reservoir in eastern Venezuelan waters. On his part, British Petroleum Executive Vice President William Lynn says the company is committed to supporting Venezuela's gas development and announces the opening of a permanent BP office in Caracas. The Memorandum of Understanding between BP and Caracas establishes potential areas of cooperation in natural gas development and future exploration. Well, as we end the program today, let's take a look at how Armenia celebrated the International Dance Day. It was on April 29th, observed around the world, the global celebration of movement, rhythm, and cultural expression. Now, in Armenia, the day is marked with vibrant public performances, which we hope we'll see in a minute, traditional displays, and community events to bring people together under the theme Come Dance. Across cities and towns, dancers of all ages take to the streets, squares, and cultural centers to showcase both traditional Armenian folk dance and modern styles. Celebrations highlight Armenia's deep cultural heritage, where dance has long played a role in storytelling, identity, and unity. Organizers say the event is not only about performance, but also about connection. Come Dance encourages participation from everyone, regardless of skill level, reinforcing the idea that dance is a universal language that bridges generations and communities. I do apologize, we're going to bring you that video, but that's the world today. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Rang.